Welcome back to our channel, where we talk about all things related to anxiety and our mental well-being. My name is Jennifer Roblin and I'm an anxiety therapist and specialist. In today's video, we're going to be looking at how to manage back to school anxiety, and I'm going to offer you some top tips that you can introduce immediately if your child is struggling right now. So many children will currently be feeling back to school anxiety for the autumn term. Most children will have spent a lot of the summer holidays with their family, and the transition back to school, going into a new school environment, or even starting school altogether, can be a fearful one. They will likely have a fear or apprehension about the unknown, such as how to find their way around the school, how to find their new friends in their classroom, where they will eat their lunch, or even where they should go if they find themselves feeling unwell or poorly. They may be fearful of the changes to the schedule they currently have, or are worried about how they are going to make new friends. It can be daunting for many children to meet new peers and teachers. Perhaps a trusted friend has moved away, or the classroom sizes may have got much bigger if they're going up to a new school, and this can feel overwhelming and scary. Maybe your child is apprehensive about the schoolwork itself, or how they're going to cope with the increased homework perhaps. This will be especially true if your child has been struggling to keep up academically previously in the previous term, and they believe they're not as smart as the other children in their class. It could even be that this year your child is expected to sit exams or possibly choose subjects which they're going to have to study for their GCSEs or A-levels, and understandably this is daunting for them. Some children will be worried about not having the right look. They may now wear glasses or have braces and are worried about being teased. Others may have entered puberty during the holidays and they sound or look physically different. And due to social media, children can get body conscious at a much younger age these days, and they may be afraid of the comments from others. And unfortunately, some children will be terrified about returning to an environment where they have previously been bullied or are on the receiving end of mean and hurtful comments from others. They may be feeling isolated and alone right now. All of these thoughts and feelings are completely natural when we're exposed to such scenarios, and they are all related to anxiety. So let's understand exactly what is anxiety. Well, anxiety is a perceived fear. It's overwhelm. It's that feeling of dread and nervousness about something or someone that's going to occur in the future. There may be feelings of impending doom that can be hard to shake off. Anxious thoughts are completely normal at these times when everything is new and unknown. And it is always worth remembering that anxiety is our body's way of keeping us safe from danger. So let's look at how does anxiety actually work, because when we understand it, it takes away some of the fear. So when we feel anxious, our fight or flight response is triggered in our brains and we develop physical symptoms that prepare us for immediate action. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, we most likely had to run away from an animal that was hoping to eat us. Now, clearly, humans don't have the same dangers now as we did millions of years ago. However, our brains have not adapted at the same pace to match our ever-changing world. Our brains are still the same as when we were living in caves. Now, hence, when we are scared or anxious, our bodies still respond in the same way we would if we saw a tiger. Adrenaline is released into our bodies when we feel anxious, stressed, fearful, or threatened. It is worth pointing out, though, that adrenaline is also released when we're excited, such as we go on a roller coaster ride. We feel it in the same place. It's normally in our tummies. Now, adrenaline helps our bodies react more quickly by making our heart beat faster. It increases the blood flow to our brain and muscles, so we might have tingling in our legs. And It stimulates our body to make sugar so that we've got it to use fuel to run away. Now, this rush of adrenaline is a good thing, as it's what enables us to instinctively jump out of the way of a car if we see it speeding towards us. We don't need to think logically about what is happening. We instinctively know to jump back onto the pavement where we are safe. Now, back to school anxiety may be heightened in the few weeks before returning to school. However, it will often fade after a couple of weeks at the new school, as everything will start to feel more familiar and we can go back to being in our new comfort zone. However, if the anxiety does persist a couple of weeks after returning to school, your child may need to seek some external help to identify specifically what is triggering the anxiety for them. Now, we do have a variety of free resources over in the description that will prove helpful to anyone struggling with any kind of anxiety. So if you're not sure where to start with back to school anxiety, I suggest starting with the exposure ladder workbook, and there's full instructions in there so that you can work through that at home. Now, before we look at strategies to help your child cope, if you are finding this helpful, please do go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit the notification button so you're kept up to date with all our latest videos. And if you happen to know anyone else struggling with back to school anxiety or any other kind of anxiety, please go ahead and share this video or our YouTube channel, as that helps us help more people. So, what can you do to support your child during this challenging time? Acknowledge their feelings would be my number one top tip. If your child is feeling anxious, then it's really important to acknowledge how they are feeling. They want to feel heard. You often hear things like my tummy hurts or my head hurts, and that normally indicates that a child is having anxiety. They've got feelings in their bodies that they don't know how to translate. Now, most young children are already able to tell us when something feels physically wrong or if they are in pain. However, they don't necessarily understand or have the words, the vocabulary and experience to express it. Most young children are not able to explain the emotions they feel, as they tend to see things differently and can't distinguish if the pain in their tummy is caused by something they've eaten, for example, or something that they are thinking and worrying about. Now, older children are more familiar with talking about their mental health and their anxious thoughts, which is a great thing. However, the majority never get the help that they need to cope, and children often go on to struggle with their mental well-being into their adult lives if it's left unaddressed within their childhood. And all too often, they feel broken in some way, and they're aware that they're not aware that anxiety is a natural response to them keeping safe. So you may start to notice changes in their behaviour too around this time. Possibly there's an increase in tantrums or anger in the run-up to returning to school, as their fight or flight response kicks in, and this could have an impact on your relationships at home. This can sometimes be interpreted as naughty behaviour, when in fact it's their anxious thoughts that are driving this, because negative behaviour is often the result of negative feelings. So if you do notice a change in their behaviour, then it's possible that something is worrying them and making them anxious, and they may not be telling you that. Now, children may appear more clingy and not let you out of their sight. Call that separation anxiety. And again, this may be frustrating for parents because they might not understand why. So it's important to address the underlying anxiety so that we understand what's driving this new behaviour. You may also notice changes to their eating or sleeping habits, or they may have become tearful and not necessarily understood why themselves. Acknowledge how they are feeling and talk to them. And it doesn't need to be a long conversation. Children are often likely to open up more when they don't feel like they're being interrogated. They may also find it helpful to write down or draw how they are feeling, depending on their age. So maybe you can choose a special notebook for them to record some of their thoughts. Now, a great time to talk to your child is when you are in the car, as when you're sitting side by side, there's no direct eye contact, and it's often easier to open up and talk about our feelings when we're not looking directly at somebody. Another thing you can do as a parent is check in on your own behaviour. Now, as a parent, we are naturally worried about our children, so we could be giving off vibes that the transition to a new school or a new school year is scary. Children are like sponges and will take on our own behaviours. So it is necessary to check in with ourselves first. Now, I have first-hand experience of this because when my own daughter started school, I knew I was nervous for her and it took a lot of strength to hide it from her. Now, she was born in Germany and her father is Swedish, so she had been introduced to several languages since birth, and she wasn't talking as much as other children her same age. She didn't have the right vocabulary to express herself. On top of this, her father and I made the decision to separate just before she started school, and my daughter and I moved back to the UK, where she'd never lived before, and into a new home. So she'd already had so much to deal with, and I was worried how she was going to deal with this new transition into school. She also wore glasses since she was 8 months old, and other children at nursery school would take off her glasses and play with them. Not necessarily in a mean way, just because it was curious and unusual to see a child so young wearing glasses. So I was worried for her, and I was worried for myself because I was worried for her. I'd been a stay-at-home mum until the point, and I knew I was going to have to return to work, and that meant I would miss her terribly. I knew I'd need a childminder to help me out, and that was another adjustment for us both. And I was already worrying about all these experiences I would miss out with my daughter and I wouldn't get to see. So on the day I took her to school for the first day, I just about held it together as I watched her go into school. And then as soon as she'd gone in, I sat in the car and cried. So I found it so hard and I was so worried for her. But I knew that I couldn't let her see me upset or worried, as this would change her own perception of school. And I didn't want to project how I was feeling onto my daughter. Luckily, I didn't need to worry though, because she came out of school beaming, showing me what she'd done. And I realised at that point that the problem was me, not her. It was my own perceived fears of her starting school and what that would mean for our future lives. It wasn't any of her fear at all. I had the potential to impact how she saw school based on how nervous and anxious I had felt about my own school years 35 years beforehand. So it's really important to manage your own behaviour. You can also help your child to feel heard. That's what they're really needing right now. At no point would I have been willing to listen to someone when I was scared and so anxious if they'd ever told me that everything was going to be okay back then. Because when we're feeling anxious, the fear appears very, very real to us, even if it seems irrational to others. So try your best to avoid telling your child that they don't need to worry or that it's no big deal, because it will be hard for them to recognise this. Instead, you can try really listening to what they have to say, preferably without interrupting, and validate their feelings. Saying something like, it looks like you have some nerves about your first day at school is far more beneficial, as it validates how you believe they are feeling and it offers them reassurance that you understand. But even more importantly, it gives them an opportunity to express exactly how they feel. So if they don't agree with you, there's no problem there either. You're still learning. Now, sometimes when we are in a conversation, it's very easy to be thinking about how we're going to respond instead of listening. So really try to give your child the time and attention they need at this point to feel at ease during the transition phase. You can try and introduce more feeling words into their vocabulary so that they have a range of ways of describing how they feel. Ask open-ended questions that require more than just a yes or no answer. Asking them what their favourite part of the day was is going to offer far more insight than asking them if they had a fun day. And you can use this information to understand what exactly is triggering their anxiety. Now, you can download the Feelings Wheel workbook that can help you with this, and there's a link in the description, and of course it's free. So be an example of how you want your child to be. This may include being a little vulnerable yourself and admitting to your child that you have had times when you felt nervous or anxious too. Do you have a similar example of joining a new group where you may have felt nervous to start with, but soon found your confidence? Your child looks up to you as their parent to empathise with them and let them know that when you feel that way, what do you do to help yourself? So, what else can you do to support your child? You can try and get them into a new routine before school with bedtimes and wake up times similar to how they'll be when they are in their genuine school day. Are you able to arrange some play dates with some other children of a similar age that will be going to that same school? Quite often there are Facebook groups for the schools so that you maybe reach out to other parents and get the children together and make some introductions before the first day so they've got someone there that's familiar. And remind them that everyone they know was a stranger once, as this helps us to understand how they have coped with situations in the past, and it can offer reassurance that they have the skills and the ability to cope again. Can you maybe go to the school before the first day and look around, or at least get familiar with the journey to and from school? Many schools have open days that you can just familiarise yourself there. You can let them know that they are not going to be the only child feeling nervous and the teachers will be expecting it. Reassure them that it's normal, but don't dwell on it. Can you practice a mantra together? That's just a phrase that you repeat over and over. Now, if you don't have a specific mantra, the one I always like to quote is from Christopher Robin in Winnie the Pooh. And it says, "You're braver than you believe and stronger and smarter than you think." And that's a great word of a phrase just to keep repeating to yourself over and over again. One of the things that I used to do when my daughter was little, I used to write messages on dried butter beans like strong or brave or love, joy, happy, fun, clever, whatever it was. And my daughter would then pick the message she wanted or needed for that day, and she'd keep her butter bean in her pocket for when she needed it. Plan rewards for when the children are brave. So involve your children in the planning. They may choose to have a favourite snack when they get home from school, or for you to read a favourite book to them. So it doesn't need to be anything too out of the ordinary, but something that they've chosen for themselves. Some simple lifestyle changes can also help lessen anxiety over time and benefit the whole family. Try a physical activity such as walking, swimming, or cycling together, and spend time outdoors in nature. You can try and spend more quality time with your child in the first couple of weeks, as they may well be feeling insecure while they find their feet at school. Positive attention from you will help to boost their self-esteem and their confidence. You can practice being mindful together. This just means focusing on the here and now, the present moment, instead of the past or the future. I share some mindful and breathing techniques on my YouTube channel, so go ahead and have a look. And again, there's links in the description. But I have something called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mindful method, and I have a finger breathing that's really good for small children. Finally, keeping them home from school is really not ideal if they're scared. It's what this does. It reaffirms that school is a scary place and that they cannot cope. So teaching them coping strategies is far more beneficial and helps them to realise that they can overcome their fear, and it helps them build their independence and their self-esteem. So back to school anxiety should decrease after a couple of weeks when they've gotten used to their new environment, they've made their friends, and they know their new routines. However, if your child is still feeling anxious, then you may need to understand what exactly is triggering it and speak to the school or see how they can support your child. When anxious feelings persist and we suffer from excessive worry, it's known as an anxiety disorder. And this is when we can lose all rational perspectives and we're constantly expecting the worst. We're hypervigilant, looking around for danger. So even when there appears to others to be no rational reason for our concern, we're still scanning the environment for danger. And children may refuse to go to school altogether at this stage. So giving them those strategies in advance is helpful in the long run. If you are unable to establish the root cause of your child's anxiety, then you may decide to see a trained anxiety specialist. So please do have a look at the free resources in the description. There's quite a lot there. They're all free, they're all downloadable. And while these workbooks cannot eliminate anxiety completely or get to the root cause easily on your own, they do go a long way to aiding you on your journey. Now, if you do need to speak to someone about getting to the root cause, then there's a link in the comments below, and then you can book a call. So please do also share your own top tips and that of your child in how they do help overcome themselves and calm themselves, self-soothe themselves, as we'd love to hear what they are. And remember, you and your child, you're not alone. There's always a better way in your life that you can handle these things, one step at a time. So if you found this video helpful, then please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, as it's got a lot more insights on there, and please do share it with anyone who you feel might benefit. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.